How are you today?
I am doing great. It's been a busy day, a busy week, and just a lot of movement right now, right?
Yes,
A lot of like quickly going forward and then being like, oh my God, just like stop.
I hear
Let me
you.
crawl
I
back
feel,
into the cave that I feel like was how this year started. Just not
yes.
moving at all.
Oh
So
my gosh. Well, you're in a hurricane year, right? We haven't
I
fully
am.
fully talked about it. And boy, I've had some conversations with other women, including my mother, who's in a hurricane year. And my goodness, did it start off with a bang. So yeah, it's really about, as you know, trying to just to stay grounded with,
Yes.
all the activity going on around you. So
Which is such a perfect segue to what I wanted to connect with you on, because the only thing that has really kept me not feeling like, oh my God, which end is up and overwhelmed because there's so much to do and so many projects and not enough time, all of that, right, has been just like the ritual and the mindset and just being open and present to it. So
so let's talk about
it's
that.
everything. It's been everything
It's been
because
everything.
otherwise I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing it. It is like, I mean, things from like projects that, and I'm thinking I'm going in one direction and then they totally fall apart and then just as quickly come back together, but in a new shape and form, and
Yeah.
just need to be light on our feet, right? And I think that that's relevant for everyone. I don't think it's just because I'm in a hurricane year. It's this whole year has been like that, where it's like, okay, no, we think it's this, or we used to do it this way, but that just doesn't work anymore. So you really have to be able to dance and
Yeah.
kind of roll with it.
You know what that brings up for me, and maybe you can speak to it a little bit, is in order to do the dance, we have to trust ourselves to a certain extent and trust in the divine, right? In that concept of uh, I'm always co-creating. I'm never alone. I'm never really doing it by myself, which I think is very difficult, not only for those of us who do practice all the time,
Yep.
but being able to just really trust in that if things are coming and going, starting and stopping, that there's no judgment, right? That everything is happening in a divine manner. And then the more we're able to connect with that belief, work with that belief, we begin to work with ourselves, I think, in a different way. And I know that it's not easy. I know I struggle with that as well. Do you have any insight on that?
1,000,000%. Yes. It's one of those things. I mean, and you know me, I'm always like, no, like, how are you dating spirit? How are you in partnership? How are you engaging spirit in your internal dialogue and bringing that third element to be part of the equation, right? Because whether it's, we teach in the Priestess and Celestial Earth lineage, like the Divine Magdalene, which is that concept that we are the temple and the one and the two come together to make the third. And we think about that from that perspective of it's man and woman or in partnership, in relationship, in our daily, or it could be in our daily, you could apply it to our daily lives. But really it's our projects too. It's every little thing that we're up to. How can we take like our own personal mindset, what it is we're thinking about, and recognize that what we're creating, even as simple as like planning our meal at dinner or not planning it, right, that becomes the project, the other piece. And when we really are intentional about that, and even in something as simple as putting a meal on the table
Yeah.
or taking time for yourself, can be a moment where you really allow for spirit to come in and like just bring peace back into your life. Because we know that the moment you pick up the phone or have that call or turn on the TV or hear something on the radio, we listen to the radio anymore.
Or listen
But
to
it's,
news anymore. Like
or
I've just
listen
stopped
to
watching the
anything,
news.
it's like you're going to get
Hmm.
bonked. And so they're I'm always tuning in. I'm always trying and to identify as many ways as possible where I can bring in that conversation with spirit, or be aware of where i'm not I'm not like considering that it's not just me that's rolling down this track, and that I have, I believe, I have faith in the fact that the work I do, even if it's, I mean, never mind the spiritual pieces and the training and the coaching, but that the work I'm doing, even with my kids, like actually
Right.
that's probably some of the most important work. And I've come to learn this year, even in my relationship, you know, with my husband and my family, like me showing up is attuned to this as possible is where the real magic happens. And when I'm not here, those are the first ones that feel that,
That's
like
exact. Those are the words
they
that wanted
get
to come
thrown
out of
by
my
the
mouth.
wayside,
They feel
you
it.
know?
They're the first ones to feel it. And I often think those of us who are trying to be on purpose every day with taking all of these tools that we're learning, you know, all that we are striving to become, and yet with the people around us is when we use it the least sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
being so intentional with that is the work. You know,
Yep.
the work begins at home, right? We've heard that a million times. Forget trying to save the world if the your little world at home is not that breeding ground that we're trying to create
Yep.
of peace, of trust,
Yep.
of surrender, and really joy at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so before we get too deep, because you know we're gonna go deep and we're gonna talk, we're gonna want to talk for hours, but we're gonna keep it to 30 minutes. It's gonna be hard. I want to say hi to Olgita who's watching. So happy to have
Hello,
you
hello.
here. Um, so Kari, you know, I often start by asking like, think of a time that you were fierce. I mean, you've already touched on that. I mean, I believe that being fierce as women, as mothers, as coaches, as trainers, as, you know, just women out in the world, being able to have this conversation and say, I want to show up more present with my husband, with my kids, and do the work with them. Like, to me, that's so freaking fierce, right? But
Yeah.
because I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'd love for you to share with us, what does that mean for you today? Like, is there a specific
Mm.
time that comes to mind, or a process, or just a way of being that you say, this is me, this is Kari being fierce
Yeah.
in my life?
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And as you're speaking into it, and before we had, you know, when we were checking in and we were just, you were sharing what we were going to be talking about, you know, I had all of these big examples of trauma and drama and life experiences that have happened where I was really able to show up as, in that spiritual sense. But as you're talking right now, like what I'm really getting hit with is, you know, in the past, when my journey started 12, 15, however many years ago now it's been, um, I was fierce, but I was fierce towards my kids, right? Like it wasn't, it wasn't the kind of fierceness. It was like, rah! And it's interesting because I was speaking about this yesterday and sharing with someone that part of my journey was, and a huge piece of what brought me into spirituality was knowing that I did not want to show up as that mom that was just like, couldn't hold her, was like be perfect on the outside with the outside world, and then would just come home and lose it on my kids because I was so stressed. And, you know, they would leave a sock or whatever else, right? And like it would be the
The
straw that was
trigger,
constantly
boom,
breaking the camel's back.
right.
I was really fierce. And
Mm.
and so there's these different ways in which we can connect to that ferocity. And I would say now, as you know, as I've been reflecting on this for the last 24 hours, the biggest way that I do it is trying to be fierce again in my family and in those relationships, especially as my kids like yours are getting older. You know, I have a middle school up to sophomore in high school. And it's just like, I feel that clock ticking of my time with them. And I'm like, you know, how have I spent my time, and just really wanting to fight for that. And why is that? Because that's where my greatest joy is. And
Mm-hmm.
yet I find myself continually choosing, you know, because I feel called to it, because it's our work, because whatever, to be going back to the outside.
Yeah.
And so to me, that ferocity, and where I find I'm repeatedly showing up as being fierce, is where I can take a stand every day for myself. And so it may look like I'm turning down a client and saying, nope, I can't do meet till next week. It like, so for me personally, that's where the fierceness shows up, because I like to think I can do it all. I like to
Mm-hmm.
think I've got this cool partnership with spirit where things are flowing and in synchronicity. And at the end of the day, like, I really just want to be able to take a walk around the block with my husband, or, you know, take my dog out and sit outside and have, like, so keep coming back to myself, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's where the fierceness is most pinnacle and most important, I find, is creating and carving out those opportunities, because it is really easy to get lost on that train of thought and just get caught up in the role and the flow and the needing to drive everybody a million different places and everything.
Right.
So that to me is like the number one fierceness. And I would say personally, where I'm working on it absolutely the most is like really feeling that and connecting with it. On the other hand, like those moments in time where I get to be really fierce, I find is when I'm in groups and just really holding space and seeing, you know me, like one of my gifts is just to feel and connect to that potential that I see.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's hard, because sometimes I don't want to have to be that person and guide through like a challenging, to me, like getting into spirituality, it should be all about play
Yes.
and having fun. And we all know that that's not necessarily how it rolls. And so that fierceness, when I feel it, to me, the fierceness is a sensation that rises up. It's like, boom, like there's the time, there's the moment, there's the word to speak. And there's the way I can show up to be that agent of spirit. And so to me, fierceness is about when I am most in alignment with that, most connected to having that moment when, and it doesn't just have to be someone like me who's like, does this and is super connected. It can
Correct.
be in the office space. It can be
Yes.
anywhere where it's like, no, like you just feel it and you know it and you like just call in that perfect moment.
Yeah.
So
I love everything you're saying, because the two examples really what I'm hearing is you being so intentional. It's that, and we talk about it all the time. It's almost a catchphrase now for, oh, let's just be intentional. But are we really being intentional, right?
yeah,
And so this idea of being fierce in our lives, so that it actually creates the flow that we're looking for, right? So not
absolutely.
showing
Yeah.
up with anger, not showing up with all this resistance and these have to do's and I have to be this, but knowing ourselves so well that we know where we can be very intentional, and that does create the peace that we're
Yep.
looking for, and the connection, the peace and the connection that we're
Yep.
seeking in life.
And I would also add to that, I mean, I'm not perfect. Like as you know, like I have plenty of moments where I'm not connecting as deeply or in my flow or getting triggered, right? And so it's also that awareness in those moments of like, oh shit, I'm here and I'm just going to scoot back over to here. I'm going to let myself. So a huge piece of this is recognizing, one, that we are all spiritual beings, right? That we're
Yes.
souls like living in this body, and that our soul has its own mindset, our human self has its own mindset, and then having the compassion for when those hiccups do occur as well, letting it flush out, making sure
Yeah.
we're not saying too much so that we end up judging ourselves on the backside of it, but truly honoring the fact that, yeah, like life sucks sometimes,
Yeah.
and we just we get to like recognize and be with that, and having that sense, like, one of the things I love about you, Monique, is you're so brilliant about building community in this community and creating the space for all of us to come back to keep connecting in, to like feel ourselves, to have the mirror. And I don't see myself as much as like, you're a brilliant community builder, and I'm like, I work at it, right? And yet
Thank
it's the
you.
community also that we get to be fierce for. It's the community that we get to see each other in, and that when we put the right people around us, really helps us, one, gives us the forgiveness so that when we hit those moments, and then helps us come back to being able to really intentionally, as you were saying, intentionally hold that space, because there's that room and that community that understands what we're trying to do and isn't going to instantly shoot us with those arrows of judgment or
Right.
bringing us down, and will continue to just hold space for us to be who we are and to continue to rise up, because we are being intentional in that evolutionary soul process.
100%. You know, I think, and this goes back to family as well. I mean, family is our first community, right? And so we have to feed that community as well if it's going to support us. And you know, I'll ask you in a minute how you feel that has made a difference in your family life, for your kids, for your husband, what you're seeing. But jumping back to community for a minute, you know, we in having that group, whether it's a large group or a small group that we can trust, that we can connect with, we can be open with, we can even be a little judgmental with ourselves every now and then. We get to mirror each other, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Paula.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've seen so many of you hop in here. So hello to everybody who's joined us. Yes, yes, yes. Creating community intentionally in the simplicity of being fierce in our daily lives. Boy, you just succinctly stated that, Paula.
Right?
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we can help each other be fierce. And I think that's really the point, is that
Yeah.
we can't always see ourselves when we are in that space where we don't trust ourselves, where we made a mistake, where we fell off the spiritual wagon and we're criticizing ourselves for it, right? But
Yeah.
the others around us who have come to know us, who know us sometimes better than we know ourselves, can help us to pause and say, wait a minute, let's remember what you just did last week. Let's talk about that. Let's celebrate what you have been doing well. Let's celebrate the moments where you didn't have the hiccup and you were honoring your intentions and your truth. And that is where community is so powerful and has been so powerful for me and for us. And I think, Kari, this is actually a great opportunity, because what we failed to do in the beginning is tell everybody who you are. This is how much Kari and I talk, and we just vibe off each other. So Kari, why don't you tell the ladies, you know, succinctly what it is that you do and the kind of community that you have created for us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you to everyone for tuning in, for listening. I always love having the conversations, because we always are saying when we're in group, like, if we just were recording this, like, it would change the world, right? Yes. Because it's the insights and the awarenesses and the opportunities that present themselves are so brilliant and so beautiful in that process of mirroring. And so what I do, I'm a high priestess. I run programs. I run a program called Celestial Earth School. I do it for both men and women. Monique has come through with most of my women's groups. And what it's all about is understanding that we have a divinity living within us. And how do we peel back the layers and come to know ourselves so deeply that divinity has the opportunity to express itself. And so some people may think of that as, like, you know, we think of the great artists and musicians and you know, we think, oh, they need a muse or they need this or that. And, like, I look at all of you and I'm like, no, it's right there. Like, we just have to peel a few more layers and allow for the seeds of the divine and those cravings and those desires that you're experiencing. Like, how can we work with them and move through the process? And so I run this mystery school. It's a mystery school that has been part of my life intentionally for the last 5 years. Yeah. And it's just been a brilliant journey. I'm obsessed with the soul's evolution and how do we get the body clear enough, like, from a power perspective. And I'm not like just talking like women's power, but like energetic power. Sure. How do we clean enough of it out and kind of get over some of the hiccups that we've learned through our earth school, right? To be able to run enough energy so that every day we're experiencing that celestial elements. Those, like, I wasn't a channel, as you know, Mo, like, I was not a channel. I was in corporate, I was an analyst. So for me, if I can do this, I feel like everybody has that potential to wire themselves up and learn the mindset and step into the work that they feel. Everyone here is already feeling themselves being called to it. So
they are 100%.
I just like to look to that.
That's what this community invites everybody to do. Melissa, thank you. I'm so happy you're a part of this community. God, so much I want to say, but let's stick with this energy concept. You know, and tying it to corporate, tying it to working for others, because I think we're in a place in the world right now where the entrepreneurial spirit and the craving for freedom, for being owners of our own time, of our own bodies, of our own minds, is so strong. And it's not everybody's journey, right? And even for many of us who have done that journey, we may not stay there, we may go back. And so for me, what I have learned, because I was in that space for 10 years trying to get out of the corporate and doing my own thing on the side, and while that was great, it is taxing. It's very taxing to run both of those energies at the same
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
through being in priestess, through being a high priestess, and learning how to run my own energy and getting to know myself so well, and trusting the evolution of my soul and seeing what that evolution is, understanding
Yeah.
it, I've come to realize that the big lesson for all of us is, no matter, and this to me is what being a high priestess is in the earth school, no matter what I'm doing, no matter who I'm working for, if I'm working for myself or working for someone else, and it doesn't matter what's happening all around me, I get the ability, and I have the ability, through connection with myself and through source as I define it, to come into alignment in any moment and find joy and purpose for my soul in any moment. And if I'm able to do that, life is good. We don't have to judge ourselves so much, right?
Ashi. Yeah, a
Yeah.
million. Yes, yes, yes.
And that
That was,
and that shows up for me every single day. It's like, it's
yeah,
not about tomorrow. And I think the world we live in today, we've seen it, we're experiencing it now. I got to find joy right now.
yeah.
Right? In this moment here with you, I'm like ecstatic. Like, if I do nothing else
Me
today,
too.
I'm a happy woman. Like, this brings me joy, you
Yeah,
know? And so where am I going to find joy in the next moment? It's probably going to be picking up my daughter from school and
right.
just being in the moment with her, right? And being priestess with her. So I think this is a good segue to get back to what you were saying with your kids and how you're showing up intentionally and saying no to certain things so that you could say yes to yourself and your family. We know how energy works. When we show up in the right energy, others resonate. We bring them up to that energy resonation. What are the changes you've seen in your kids and in your husband because of what you have done?
Wow. Well, I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in right now. Uh, you know, it's also, there's that dynamic of whatever it is, like the shoemaker's daughter, right? Like like the shoemaker's family never has shoes. And so in part, I try to just allow them to have their own journey without sticking my nose in their business too much. But what I find is that from a mindset perspective, our family motto is like just fit out, right? Like just fit out. Like don't try to be where everyone else is, even though
Right.
that's all they want to. And so like I have little things like that that I hope, more than anything, I would say with my kids and the work I do and always coming back to myself, like one, like I started with, just the calm, right? I
Yeah.
don't, they may disagree. I don't think I trigger anymore. Maybe I do sometimes,
That's
but I
huge.
really don't. It's what I got into this for. Like I needed the perspective, and we can talk through it. Like if I'm really having a moment, or if they're really having a moment, it's that ability to just come back to center. I always say every family has a live wire, right?
Yeah.
That's just, and so who, sometimes that's one individual or another in the family, and like who's there to always keep grounding them. And so it's just the awareness, because again, they're going through their evolutionary journey. I have no desire to make that or give to or take for, like they need to have those experiences. And so it's also empowered me to allow them to do that as well,
Mm.
without trying to over helicopter or control or be too involved in their business. But with my husband, it has been just as, so often you hear on the evolutionary journey or on the spiritual journey that people are going to come in and fall out. And I've known with him that he never would. And he's had the grace and the compassion to watch me go through all of this and then in his own way make his journey his own. And
Yeah.
so I feel really, really empowered and blessed. to be working with a partner in that sense. And I would say the key is that we're committed to evolving together, as opposed to like, it's not that it's not all about the love, but it's like, no, like we are in contract together to evolve together. And that's recognizing that I'm absolutely going to screw it up
Right.
most of the time.
Right.
And like being able to have the space to do that and then come back and have the conversation. So I would say this whole journey has been about picking up and learning those tools, and really, again, being able to have the community to come back to help me center and know who I am as a mom, as a partner, and all of these different elements. And I would say, like, one piece that I want to touch on as it relates to it is that, you know, it comes back to the ritual. It comes back to the commitment to, you know, not focusing. We're so trained and conditioned from a mindset perspective to go to the outside, whether it's through religion, through, you know, material like the world, media, your phone, it doesn't matter. We're trained to go out there. And through simple things like the way in which you prepare your meal and just slowing down enough to take time to eat it instead of in the car or whatever else. And I'll eat in the car too, don't get me wrong. Or like making tea, right? As Shivani loves to talk about, like tea time is me time. All of these different things, right? That slow us down. For me, I light a candle every time I come into my office. Like it's there, it sits with me. I feel the light turn on inside of me. You know, little things like that ground us in. When I step outside for the first time today, I just give myself half a second. It's not even more than that, but to consciously connect to the feeling of the sun on my face, even if it's not up yet, right? So each of these little things, like so minute, build up into something bigger. And so I would say, as it relates to my family, if they come away from nothing more than just understanding why I'm like, I'm not even a super structured and disciplined person, but I'm like, no, we got to do this. And like, you got to stay with it so that you have that knowingness of who you are and that safe space to always be coming back to.
Yeah. And the tools, identifying what those tools are that do support you in those moments, you know, like for me, I think a lot of people think that religion and or spirituality, however we define it, is going to like put us in a space where we don't feel pain, where we're perfect. And it's really the opposite of that. For me, it's like when you're so connected, you give yourself permission to be human, because that's what we're here to be, is to be human, and know that despite our journey and despite any mistakes, we're always loved, we're always protected, we're always watched, and we're always in co-creation, right? And so giving ourselves that break and defining those tools and our rituals that we allow ourselves and give ourselves the time and space daily to be a part of really can transform how we experience life. Yeah.
And I'll like, essentially what you just laid out is the definition of what a priest or a priestess is, right? It's just that person that's carving out the time to allow that space, literally the space in our mind through a breath, right? It creates space in the body, which allows for that connection to self, that connection to spirit to come through. It's nothing more than that. It's not, you know, there's a body of work and deepening and training and everything else. But at the end of the day, if you're truly being a priest or a priestess to yourself, that's what you're up to. It's just creating and carving out that time and that space, even if it's for 30 seconds throughout, you know, at any given point in time. So it's changed my life, right? It's brought me to you. It's brought me to the incredible community that, and it's what, I guess, if, you know, back to the question regarding the fierceness, it's what I feel like, what I'm willing to put a stake in the ground and fight for, right? Is not just myself, but that opportunity for other people. And to really, really allow that to be that awareness. You know, it's funny because if you look back like 300 years ago, we didn't have dental hygiene, right? People probably cared for their teeth, but there wasn't that concept of going to the dentist and all this work we can do to create these beautiful smiles, right? And today's day and age, like the hygiene and the levels that are coming on board are for our soul and for our nervous system, so that we're we're moving so fast, and it's like, how do we drop roots into the earth to just feel
To just
ourselves?
feel
And to
ourselves.
your point, like it's not going to be hard, or it's not going to always be easy. One of the most inspiring quotes I ever came across, and it's just stuck with me, is Sir Winston Churchill says, "Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without the loss of momentum."
Oh my God, I love it.
And what's so inherent in that is that I know your story. I'm not going to speak for it, but I know mine. And it's been like one failure after another after another. And so I was like, okay, well, if this is the game, right? Like if this is what we're into, and if I know, like, success for me is the emotional components, right? And having the experience along the way, how can I just make the most of it? And again, it comes back to that ritual, and having, every time I fall off of it, doesn't matter. I am like,
Yeah.
why?
I hear
So.
you. Okay, Paula says, I love this quote. So perfect for tying in the entrepreneurial journey too. Absolutely.
Yes.
Many of us are on that journey. Many of us want to be on that journey. And that's one of the reasons I created this group as well, because
And I also wanted to speak to, not to jump on your words, but
no, go
you
for
had
it.
mentioned the corporate, right?
Yeah.
And people that are in like that, more how we hold different fields. And I've done that as well, where it's like, you've got this, and you have this, and then you have family, you have life, and then you have these dreams and these desires and these endeavors, and this thing that actually over here is the truth, right?
Right.
Is where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, which is what gets you to keep showing up to it, even though it's so draining, or can be so draining on the other side. And I would say my best advice in that regard is to stay committed to the spiritual aspects of who you are, because it's again, and continue, just recognize that even the smallest of doses of light and love and intentionality in that realm, we're all building fields of energy, whether we realize it or not. We're all like gods and goddesses down here, like building our own world. And so the more you're empowered to step into owning that there, and then picking up the different tools to help you, begin to shift this.
Right.
I've seen in work dynamics and experiences, some of the most profound transformations be made, even in an office dynamic. One of our priestess sisters was in a corporate position, and knew that she was dealing with a narcissistic boss, and he was manipulating and probably trying to run her out the door. And she did nothing more than connect to her truth, stay centered in her truth. And when one or two conversations came up, not even to throw him under the bus, but just speaking into, like, no, this is who I am, this is my truth. Anyway, the whole thing, it was like the universe conspired and removed him from the situation, because that wasn't like in alignment. And she was doing a better job of like connecting to herself than obviously that individual was, in terms of, so we could go on about that story forever, but it's still like, we possess this no matter what the dynamic and the circumstance is. And so the more you're clear on what this is here, the more the universe is able to conspire and to help you, especially because we're constantly learning the lessons. We're just flushing out patterns. And so often we're like quick to like cut that cord or jump into the next thing, only to find it showing up in another job, in another experience, right? And so when we're able to slow ourselves down, right, and have that community to reflect back and help us think through the different problems and experiences we're having, and really connect to like what it is we're trying to achieve, and step out of that victimhood and see how these experiences are happening for us and not to us, it all unfolds.
It does. It absolutely does. And I think, again, when we show up with that, when we are intentional about knowing where our energy is, where am I? Am I feeling like a victim today? Do I feel like I need to fight someone today? Am I in a place of balance? Am I in a place of joy? And being able to work our energy and get it up to where it needs to be, not only does it shift our environment, but it really does create change, in organizations, in companies. And I tell you what, if I had Priestess back when I was going through this transition years and years ago, it would have gone so much better. Like it would have it would have felt better. And so, yeah, these tools really, really work. So we've gone way over, of course. I knew that was going to happen. So I'm going to honor your time, Kari. I want everybody to know that Kari's a member of this community, and you can reach her here. You can learn more about her Celestial Earth School, the Priest and Priestess program, if that's something you're interested in, and talking about ritual, which is a part of all of that. I've posted in the group, and I'm going to post it again today. We have a challenge, a 5-day challenge coming up at the end of the month, starting on the 28th, and it's all about ritual. So I encourage all of you to sign up for that and to be present for it and make the time. And we're talking about little things we're going to be doing, not big things. Make the time, you know, to play with it, to have fun with creating ritual that supports you, gets you in alignment, and allows you to be more intentional and joyful.
And I want to add one other piece to that, Monique, for you.
Please, sure.
Is that I've had, you know, in a lot of the groups I'm working with, like a lot of people showing up and really tracking with the trauma that's happening in the world around us right now, and feeling it, feeling the connections to it, and feeling hopeless in what it's all about, and what can we do. And the more I meditate on it, and the more I'm in community and having these conversations, you know, what keeps showing up primarily from the Magdalene, right, is the message is just to love ourselves, right? Because as you love yourself and I love myself, as we honor these rituals, I think it's so brilliant that you have this timed for right now. You know, like you said, it's going to be 5 days of connecting into that. And at the end of the day, like if we're really wanting to alter the vibrational fields, like it's not going to be us going out and like taking all this action and doing all this stuff. We aren't going to be able to shove the dial, but where we can shove the dial is by creating this connection, and the ritual is the key to doing it. So yeah. I think the timing is so divine, so called for. And it also, I just wanted to attach that bigger piece to it, because I think we're all feeling like there gets to be something more, and it's okay. It's not selfishness when we focus on ourselves and when we focus on coming back in. It's allowing the vibration and the frequency of love to be what permeates the universe.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. Yeah. The more we all put love into the world, into our own lives, into the people around us, the more we step away from that fear energy, which is really what, in my opinion, causes all of these things, right? All of this turmoil in life. So, and it takes practice, to your point, right? Ritual. It takes practice to feel ourselves at that energetic space and not want to go back. You
know me, I'm always the first to say it's like going to the gym. You either show up to it and build the muscle, but build the love muscle.
Yes, build the love muscle.
That could be
somebody else may want to chime in on that. With the love
right.
Awesome.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And so much love to you in this incredible space. It's an honor to be here and to share and show up.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I know that everyone's going to find value in listening to the conversation. So love and light.
Beautiful.
See you, sweet
love
sister.
you. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.